to Fully Charged with Kendall and Sheila Qualls. On today's episode, we're discussing the crisis in K through 12 education and ways that we can empower parents. Minnesota used to be the envy of the nation. I mean, with quality of life and education standards.
Yeah, but that's yesterday's legacy.
I know. For the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen declining test scores. A lot of times when parents look at their particular school, their school district looks great. But when they look at their school compared to other schools in the state, still looks great. But when you compare those same test scores to other schools nationwide, we're falling behind.
No, that's exactly right. You know, what's sad is that we have across the state that our standardized test scores are declining across the state, even in our best school districts. We have a lot of kids, 40% of them can't read at grade level in our state. It's not a model, it's not the standard that we used to have here in our state. And the resources that we're putting toward education now is not even addressing those issues. It's something totally different.
Yeah, this new standard that we have coming out, they're calling it something different, but basically it's critical race theory, equity, diversity, inclusion, social emotional learning, or whatever else you want to call it. In the St. Paul schools, less than 17% of 8th graders are performing at grade level in math, and less than 32% are reading at grade level. And this year's 8th grade class, they're going to be the first class that will have to have this critical ethnic studies credit in order to graduate.
That's right. So not only are they reducing the number of hours needed to graduate, they're adding requirement credits on this cultural ethnic studies.
Critical race theory with a shiny new label.
Exactly. That has nothing to do with improving reading scores, math scores, or science scores. We're failing our kids. Yeah. We're failing our kids with this approach. We're spending money and resources on things that don't matter, have little issues that could be addressed in a normal way, but we're forgetting the primary reason why kids are in school and why parents are entrusting their children for the nature of their education. And for years that we've had that bond and trust with teachers in the school system that is being violated today.
With all the issues with reading and math and science and all those test scores, they want to add something like that as this new standard for licensing teachers. I mean, it's dripping with critical race theory.
Yeah, so here's basically what they're proposing. So they have 7 standards that they have when teachers are certified. They want to add an 8th standard, which is all this component around critical race theory, but they don't call it critical race theory. And that's been proposed. Right now we have to wait and see if that's going to be approved. And it's really around helping teachers understand that racism is in everything, and that there's whiteness and blackness in everything. And it's such a farce. It is a distraction from, again, the primary reason our kids are there, but also it's a farce to actually explain the disparities we see in our culture today, which are not racial. We have 2-parent privilege, not white privilege in this country. And they don't want to go in that direction.
Yeah, it's just amazing. When teachers have to understand this stuff, what that means is exactly what you said. They're then passing it on to kids, requiring teachers to understand intersectionality and how white supremacy undermines equity in our society. I mean, if that's what they think is important to teach, for teachers to learn, to teach in Minnesota, I think that's crazy.
Well, you know what's interesting? Right now, there was a publication at the Center of American Experiment. Katrin Whitfall actually publishes. It's great research if people want to look at that on the website. But they have shown that Black and Hispanic kids in Mississippi has outperformed Black and Hispanic kids in Minnesota probably for the last 3 to 5 years, using less resources and with a heavy focus on reading comprehension. That's where they have emphasized their improvement. And in fact, they're one of the few states that actually have increased their standards to the national average in all places Mississippi, and we're declining behind them.
It's just, it's so frustrating, talking to parents and, just encouraging them to get involved. But you know what? It doesn't matter. No matter how much we complain, how many school boards we show up, they're not going to move off of their agenda.
Well, they're not going to move off their agenda, and this is why we encourage parents to get involved. Get involved, run for school board, help someone run for school board, those type of things, because no matter how much you complain, you go to the school board meetings and you speak for your 2 minutes, they're not going to deviate from their agenda regardless of what parents say. They have an agenda and they're not deviating from it here locally or nationally.
It's nuts. The standards to make the dean's list in Edina Public Schools, I mean, it has nothing to do with grades. The purpose of the Dean's List Award, this is what Edina Public Schools says, is to give students the opportunity to be recognized for behaviors in class that are not always reflected in the grade book. To be considered for the Dean's List, teachers should have observed at least one or more of the following characteristics: not grades, perseverance, overcoming significant obstacles, working extremely hard even though their grade might not show it, make significant contributions to help their peers, and then significant progress in their academics. This has nothing at all to do with grades and what the Dean's List used to be. I mean, the Dean's List, which used to be totally objective, is now subjective. I mean, it's nuts. And that's why we're huge proponents of school choice and why it is so important. You know, year after year, these kids fall farther and farther behind. And we shouldn't have to tell parents, oh, well, you know, wait till next year. Let's see what happens. They should have the option to put their kids in schools that perform. I mean, these same kids, when they go to these private Christian schools, you know what happens.
Well, absolutely. Not just, again, this is not just in these poor performing schools in the inner cities. These same kids, if they go to Crystal Ray, Hope Academy, Ascension, and some of the others, they actually graduate at the 90 percentile range, and their standardized test scores are at or above national averages. So it's not that they don't have the capability, it is something wrong with the method. Yep. So here's the issue for us, more than anything I think for us, if I can speak for us. Can I?
Oh, yeah,
oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Here's what it is. Here's what it is. We want the performance, regardless of where it is. We are both products of public schools.
Absolutely.
In fact, we met you in the school.
Yes. Sat right next to me. I got an A, you got a C, but that's okay.
Oh boy. Did you have to go public with that? Well, here's the point is this. Parents have been entrusting teachers and schools for decades, and there is a social contract with that relationship that is being disrupted. It's being renegotiated right in the middle of the game. And that's not what a lot of parents have been asking for. So that's why school choice, we're big proponents of it. Mm-hmm. We believe it should be given to parents, especially in poor declining schools, but also given an option for parents that don't want their kids cheated from the Dean's List.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. These parents need to have options. They should be able to put their kids someplace else. These new standards for licensing teachers that are going to go into place, where can we find out more about that? Because you know a lot more about that than I do.
Well, because I work with some great people that do that, including you, by the way. At the Center of the American Experiment, if you go to their website, the Center of the American Experiment, go to the Education tab, and Catherine Whitfall does a phenomenal job updating Minnesotans on the new standards. So they can stay involved. And, you can get on her email list, and she'll give you an update on, when our public hearings and that type of thing.
That'll do it for this episode of Fully Charged. Go to our website, Take Charge MN, Mike November.
Wow, look at you.
TakeChargeMN.com and subscribe. And if you like what you hear, please consider supporting us. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, follow us on Spotify or any other podcast platform. And please, while you're there, give us a 5-star rating.
We make me feel like an Uber driver. But I don't get 5-star ratings. Thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next time.